absolutely. So welcome back, everyone that's checking out. This is going to be the first of our podcasts that are going to be up on all the audio platforms like Spotify. We've had interviews with Joe Alves, production designer of Jaws, director Alex Proyas, and lots of other people. And especially this year, Ian and I are kind of forming a more kind of horror-based and talking to all sorts of people all over the world. And we just spoke to the effects team from Terrifier 3 and then Jeremy Sellenfield from Smile 2 recently. And it's almost like, I would say that it feels like a great year for horror. And to have someone like yourself, Pierre, on our little show is a real treat because I would say it's one of the best films of the year with The Substance. And your work is outstanding. So yeah, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
So just to kind of get us set us off, what was your, and we'll kind of go back and forth, how you started and all of that. What's your how does it feel now, kind of post the release of The Substance?
I guess I feel better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just got some rest.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's,
what was the
sorry,
outside of the shooting? That's okay. Outside of the actual shooting, what was the sort of pre-production time for you? Because I can imagine that you had quite an extensive time to build a lot of that stuff before shooting even began.
Yes, it was quite long, especially compared to nowadays prep time that we have. They are much shorter. I guess we started designing stuff around December 2021, and we started shooting in May, if memory serves, May 2022. Wow. And then we shot until late October or November. It was quite a long shoot.
Yeah, wow.
So, and we kept on building during obviously the shooting. So yeah, it was quite a long time.
Non-stop.
Yeah, no, that was good because many things that we've done and built, we've done twice, rebuilding stuff and to make it better, and so it takes time.
Wild. Yeah, wild.
So what we'll do is we'll come back to The Substance because it really is a marvel, and my wife and I went to see it, and I think the marketing for it has been really on point. Some films miss the mark with marketing, and I think for Coralie and the team and the amount of work that's gone into it, it's got this slow build in terms of word of mouth's been extremely strong on it. So we'll kind of circle back to the film and its production because there's lots to talk about with that, especially with things like the boob drop and the last scene and everything. So I had to mention it because it was my wife and I were laughing. So the whole audience was laughing at that, but it's a marvel. We'll come back to it. So Pierre, where did your kind of passion, because obviously I think anyone in this industry, whether it's behind the scenes, in front of the camera, loves film. So where did your kind of passion for film and before filmmaking, where did that come from? Was it family or friends?
No, I don't know. As far as I can remember, I always wanted to be not a gangster, but a makeup effects artist. I don't know. I guess in my family we were watching lots of movies and at home or at the cinema. And when I was very young, I felt in love with movies, and there were lots of great movies when I was, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years old, or they were like Raiders of the Lost Ark and Gremlins and Ghostbusters and many things that on the big screen. It's when you are 10 years old, it's just fantastic. And also I was watching the old, even when I was young, the old Hammer, Horror of Dracula, Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, and The Curse of the Werewolves, and I was really aware of these movies very young. I had the chance with my family, we were able to watch all kind of, from Western to thriller to comedy to horror. It wasn't forbidden. We could watch horror movies, and quite young too. The Exorcist, and all that. I was able to watch it very young, so that's how it started.
Did you have any particular favorites even at that age? For me, like obviously, The Exorcist is such a huge thing, but that came later in life for me. With growing up, it was Child's Play and all sorts of stuff like that, and Nightmare on Elm Street, and all of these films have great makeups or different stages of makeups, and something we'll touch upon, with Dick Smith's work and The Hunger, especially with the age makeup, and that's something I want to touch on. Is there anything in particular that really kind of was a spark for you to see how films were made?
Yeah. Okay. Before makeup effects, I was obsessed. I was crazy about. Don't ask me why. When I was a kid, The Dirty Dozen.
Yeah.
The war movie. For some reason, I was watching that movie over and over again. Okay, but makeup effects. Yeah, I guess the spark was. I guess it was Tom Savini's work. Even though after that I was really into Dick Smith and Rob Bottin and all the Rick Becker and all the great, amazing, and Kevin Yeager and all the great masters. But the sparks was, I guess, Day of the Dead, Creepshow, Day of the Dead, especially Day of the Dead. I was in high school and maybe not high school. I don't know the word in English, but Tom Savini, and I was, because it was the mid 80s, and especially in France. I grew up in Paris suburbs, and it was very difficult. Of course, no internet. It was very difficult to get, and in France to get informations. And I was able. I don't know how. I was lucky to find Tom Savini's book. I had the Bizarro edition. I guess it's called Grand Illusion, but I got the Bizarro book, and so I was looking at the pictures, couldn't really read any English, but that's how it started, I guess.
That's awesome.
It's the images, isn't it? Because when we talked to Jeremy about Smile 2 and his influences, it's the kind of the box art, or purely through the images. Like, you can, if a story can be told purely, just through the image rather than with the sound turned down, you're kind of halfway there, and vice versa. So we can absolutely attest to that, because that's the thing that drew Ian and I and a lot of other filmmakers, was the images on the boxes on the VHSs in the 80s and 90s. And it's like, what's that? Why am I not allowed to see that?
So cool. Yeah, I remember, because we didn't have, when I was a kid, we didn't have a VHS player at the time, but I started buying like American Werewolf in London, so I had the VHS, and I was carrying the tape with me in my bag when I was going to friends and everything. If I was lucky enough just to play, at least watch the transformation.
Yeah. Well, that's so awesome. Yeah, I really. It's funny you say the Day of the Dead, because my dad showed me Night of the Living Dead when I was really young and loved it. And then, like yourself, I had a parent that was really great at just showing me everything. Watch Jaws, watch The Exorcist. I think you might like these. I'd come home from trick or treating, and I remember seeing Dawn of the Dead, and I loved it because it was a lot more gory than Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, yeah.
It was in color, and but there was something about Day of the Dead and it was I think the Discovery Channel had a 30-minute documentary making of specifically on Day of the Dead, and I remember watching that more than any of the zombie movies I had on VHS, because I couldn't believe that this is what they were actually making, and they would use real animal intestines for scenes. And I was like, you can do that? I mean, it's, and that was such a powerful movie, which introduced me as well to Tom Savini, but then to practical effects. And there's really no right or wrong. It's just what looks good, what's the director's vision, you know. And I love all of those movies. You know, Raiders of the Lost Ark I loved, but when I saw Temple of Doom,
Oh yeah,
big
yeah.
effects, ripping the heart out, and I was just like, how are they doing this? What is? But I was aware enough that this isn't real, and there's like a magic and a science that's happening here. Um, and so, did you have that when you watched those movies outside? Because I love Ghostbusters. You know, it's one of my favorite movies even now. But I still remember, like, how did they get those ghosts there? How did the Stay Puft get in the city? You know, I had no idea it was a guy in a suit and models and that. Were you aware when watching these movies that you enjoyed it, but there was something going on bigger than just the entertainment?
Yes, because we had on TV a French show. It was every Saturday or so. It was called Temps X, Time X, and it was really cool. It was for 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, and it was um, first they were doing small subject about movies, fantasy, horror movies, and everything, and sometimes especially about special effects, makeup effects, and all that. And so like E.T., Carlo Rambaldi, and stuff like that, Rebecca, and so sometimes I could catch glimpses of all that magic. And after that, they were always playing an episode of The Twilight Zone, dubbed in French, but it was Saturday afternoon in the 80s. But still, it was really cool. And yeah, and also, I don't know, that time, that was another time, and the few glimpses you could see, making of, you could see on TV, just a few seconds, or in magazines. I remember I had a magazine. It was about special magazine about Return of the Jedi, and with all the models and the makeup effects and all the aliens and all the models, the matte paintings and all that. And that was pure magic. I still have the magazine list.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm still learning things about, huge Star Wars fan, obviously. I'm still learning things about it now because of the internet. Some people post some behind the scene from some, German release that was only for them. And it's like, oh, that was a matte painting as well. Of course it was, like
Yeah,
here we are 30, 40 years later, and it's still continuing to blow my mind. Yeah.
I
It's so
so agree. Yeah.
yeah. Especially at that time, there is something about 80s horror specifically. I was born in the mid 80s, but so I sort of grew up in the 90s, but there is something about that time period where, we could still get the older classics, but, and I'm biased, but the 80s horror and the special effects development from the end of the 70s into the 80s 90s was such a powerful time on a lot of artists, I think, who work in the industry in whatever capacity. So I think we're very lucky to have had that.
Oh yeah, so true, so true.
Yeah.
So many amazing. To this day, I think the Howling is the best werewolf movie ever made.
And like you look at Dee Wallace's performance at the end, it's terrifying on TV. And my wife and I, we just watched Needful Things because I'm a huge Ed Harris fan, and obviously Max von Sydow is a legend of cinema, and we thought, oh, is it one of these TV movies? But the cast was phenomenal, but it was there was simple effects in that because effectively Max von Sydow's playing the devil or a demon, and it's like, and this relates to the substance and how the finger makeup and those small things that is perceived as small compared to obviously the magnum opus at the end, and it's incredible. Like you see his fingers and the age makeup, and even just on the fingers or the way they've darkened his teeth. Some simple effects outweigh some of the big stuff in a huge way, and it's amazing. You're always, because you must be always influenced by the outside, but now it's kind of flipped, and you're one of the influences with your work because it's going to be a love-in to a certain degree because the work is astounding. But how does that feel to go from being a huge fan of Dick Smith, Rick Baker, some of the masters, to working, for ourselves? I'll put it out there, working at such a very high level yourself. How does that feel to make that kind of huge kind of leap?
It does feel the same because I'm the same guy. I still love Dick Smith and and all the amazing artists you mentioned. I feel exactly the same. They are the masters, and I try to do my work as best as I can. Yeah, but they are. Yeah, well, when you have been a teenager in your bedroom, once you've been a teenager in your bedroom copying all this master work, like very crudely, and you cannot. Yeah, you're always the student, and they are the masters.
So were you drawing kind of monsters in the past, or makeups, or what were those things you were kind of drawing when you were younger?
I had some clay and plastilina when I was, I don't know, 14, 15 years old. For Christmas I had latex and a bit of latex and a bit of plaster and plastilina, and I was sculpting very, very crude French version of Fluffy from Creepshow or Darkness.
Oh, cool.
But I would blush to show that to you, but like like very super cheesy Darkness and a Gremlin and American Werewolf and the one of the heads, but like like 14 years old in your bedroom version of it. So that's how it's.
After that kind of passion and love for it, what was the moment you decided to were you classically trained? Were you trained in how do I step out of my love for it? Was it reading the Savini books? Because obviously there's schools and courses you can go on. So what was your kind of what was the next natural step for you?
Well, at the time, there were not many makeup school in France. There were no Joe Blasco or stuff like that in France. They were kind of cheesy at the time. And I had another book when I was in high school. It's called Three-Dimensional Makeup by Lee Bagan, and it was super helpful. It was more like aging makeups, foam latex, and stuff like that. And even though the technology is a bit, I don't know, things have, we could update that book a little bit. It's still a great book, and I learned a lot from that book. But no, I wish I had classical training, and at the time when I was 19, 20 years old, there were absolutely no makeup effects studios and company in France at all. And there were really a handful, but when I say a handful, 2 or 3 people doing makeup effects and in their basement, and that was it. That was the industry, very far from the US. And so, but I was like, okay, I left home, and I'm going to be a special makeup effects artist. So I struggled a lot for, I don't know, 10 years, working on and off for museums and museum displays, video games, theater, stage plays, and whatever I could find. And then bit by bit, I was able to, I guess when I was 25, 26, I was very lucky enough, beginner's luck, to get some as a supervisor. Don't ask me why. To supervise. I mean, I had a crew of 2, so it's not much to supervise. But a couple of feature films, and that's how it started, really.
Did you get much
Yeah.
opportunity when you had those kind of theatre opportunities to work on people's faces or test makeups out? Because when we spoke to Jeremy from the Smile 2 team, he had a living in New York where he was kind of based at the time. He had friends he could test makeups on and make scars and all sorts of things. So what was the kind of first real opportunity? Was that before the theatre practice or before the feature film stuff?
Oh, it was when I was a teenager. You mean friends, guinea pigs? Yeah, yes. Oh yeah. Live casting friends in my mom's kitchen, or and we were shooting Super 8. We did 2 Super 8 movies, short, movies, and they were a rip-off of Street Trash and The Evil Dead, but but like 4 minutes rips off, and but yeah, I was doing. I remember also when I was in high school, I did because Batman Begins was ready to be released, and I did from a picture from a magazine. I did the penguin makeup with a latex mask on one of my friends, and still friend with him to these days. So it was not that was okay.
But yeah, he must when you speak to him, he'll say to you, "You owe me, you owe me. Look at the position."
You know what he says to me? He said, because we were teenagers, and so we had spots on our face, spots. And he was like, "Yeah, I had spots because of the latex you were applying on my face." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, because of the latex, sure."
That's brilliant. That's really great.
Oh, it's awesome. But all that stuff, it's so accumulative, and again, I think we have a lot of up and coming artists and creative people that listen to this podcast, and it's even for myself, a lot of what I do as a filmmaker is all self-taught and trial and error.
Best cool.
So the fact that there's I think it's an interesting time now because of technology that's available even on a consumer level, with the internet and YouTube and digital cameras now and effects, and there's so much information that there is something about that 80s. We did a lot of VHS short films, those VHS to VHS editing, right?
Yeah.
Spring knives and ketchup for blood, and there was baby powder in the hair so you could look old and play my dad,
Yeah, shampoo for melting people.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's, and all that stuff, you say how you got lucky to supervise, but I mean, all that experience of doing the hustle or the grind, and of course luck is a huge part of a lot of things, but you had positioned yourself to be put into positions where you were the experienced person, and you had, and I think it's fantastic, doing the museum stuff, video games, all the different pieces you do. There's never a right way, but you have to just do it, right?
Yeah, that's it. And exactly what you say, trial and errors. You need to be able to find solutions and to think by yourself. And that's, you cannot study that in school, I guess.
No, not at all. And I can imagine even for something like The Substance, and of course, all the complicated pieces, a lot of that is exactly that, the trial and error of how can we do this?
Yeah, I agree. I don't know what you think about that, but I think it's one of the best. It's cool to do the work, but it's one of my favorite thing is to, okay, how are we gonna do that?
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. It's the challenges, right? Yeah. When someone's like, how can we do this? Especially when it's, someone's vision and they bring it to you and say, this is what I want to do. And what would you do? How do you figure out this equation? And you're like, oh, okay. And you have to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the best.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And Coralie Fargeat was a lot like that.
Absolutely, like, because I want to go straight into Substance at some point, but because there's so many great pieces, and that's something I want to ask what your favorite pieces are. And before you started to work on that film, and you work on, because there's some huge kind of properties you worked on. Did you form your Pop FX a good few years ago to help bring a larger team for larger projects? How did that? What was your kind of thinking between being an individual to a team? How did you get to that point?
Well, I guess simply when the projects grew bigger, it's just a necessity. I guess for me, the I worked on my own for many years, and then around 20, 2006 and 2007, I started really having a bigger crew, like 5, 10 people working in my crew. And so things changed around that time. So it's a good, I don't know, a good, yeah, I don't know, 17 years ago. Or
Because there's a huge amount of trust in there, isn't there? Because there's a great we'll obviously go back and forth on this. There's a great behind the scenes photo you posted underneath the stage from the last scene of The Substance, and you don't get, because obviously those scenes obviously take a long time because there's so many kind of setups, resetups, that kind of thing, and you have to be able to stand the person you're working with, because you're like huddled with these, like clear jackets on with all the blood. So how obviously this is kind of an obvious question, but how important is that level of collaboration when you're working so closely with people?
yeah, well, first, I work with talented people. I don't care about the CV. I don't care if they have worked on movies before. I had some people, people very important in my crew, who started working with me, and they never had any. They never, they didn't have any experience, movie experience. They never worked on a movie before. But they were really talented sculptor, for instance, or painter, and from another industry. And so talent and a nice personality helps. Because you're gonna work like 15 hours a day sometimes, and at the workshop and on set, lots of pressure, and you want people. I love people when they are reliable. You can trust them, and also, I mean, we are human. Sometimes we can be tired or a bit moody or whatever, and it happens, or we are a bit grumpy, but happens to anyone. But yeah, it's a mix of all that. So and it's a good question, because at first when I started, it was very difficult for me to crew up, to find the right crew. And so you work with the people you can, not the people you want to, but the people you can work with. And then bit by bit, you have better artists, and it's your crew makes you look good. In a way, you are never as good as the people around you, and so it's a teamwork, big teamwork.
So that what I really like about that is, I guess within your team, if someone's a strong painter, for instance, do they start to then bring up their other skills? Are they interested in doing everything, or do you keep them, or do they stay within what they're used to, or do their skills kind of improve within the team?
It depends on the artist or the technician. Some people, they only do molds, or they run appliances, silicone running, or other people, they can do a little bit of everything. They can sculpt and mold and paint, or like that. Some people, they just do hair. But the people, if someone is doing only molds or hair, they are really good at mold making, really good at hair. And when you do a bit of everything, you can be really good. But I don't know. I don't care really. And so I guess you give the work you give to someone depends on obviously on their qualities, and so it's.
That's incredible.
That's it.
It's and because obviously, you know, if being top of the tree, so to speak, or within, you know, supervising that team, you've got to keep an eye on certain things. But then that, not anxiety, but that part of it, or the blood mix, or the latex, or the molds, you can trust them, so you can focus on the larger picture kind of thing. That's really interesting.
Exactly, because when you have a weak link in your team, you freak out. Exactly
Yeah.
that. And so, and then you know that, and you cannot do what you have to do, which is the bigger picture. And you're dead if you have a weak link. It's in the substance we had no weak link at all. Amazing crew.
Did you always want to? Was it always you wanted to base your team in Paris, or did you think you'd have to go to the US?
I don't know, because when I was 20-ish, I was kind of broke, so it was just there was no way I could buy a ticket to go to the US. So that was it. And then there was also the green card kind of thing, and I don't think I was experienced enough. I don't know. I would have never dared to do that. I really wanted to take the Dick Smith course, but I never. I guess I never had the money, but I never had the guts to call him or write to him, or I don't know. I was too shy at the time, I guess. But no, so I stayed in France. I moved a little bit in the UK, and I've worked on some shows in the UK, but more recently, or other places in the world.
Was that Game of Thrones, or is it past that?
Yeah, for with Barry and Sarah Gower, on Game of Thrones, and Mark Coulier on World War Z. Worked on Border, the Swedish movie. I don't know if you've seen that one, Border. It's a really cool movie. So, but I love doing that. But I have family, so when you are away for 5 months, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
So obviously, go ahead, Ian. Sorry.
Oh, just in regards to, you know, is you have such an incredible body of work and a lot, you know, so many different projects, but talking to you about your influences, getting into the work professionally, did you aspire to do horror specific? Was it, I'll take any work that I can do and build up? Is it a touch on realism, a touch on absurdism? Was it, what was sort of the dream or the goal that you had wanted?
Yeah, that's a good question, because the dream at the beginning was I wanted to work with French John Carpenter or French Sam Raimi, but there were no French Sam Raimi, or maybe they were, but they didn't have any money, and so they couldn't shoot any movie. Okay, so I wanted to work on horror movies, but when the movies I was working on were auteur movies. Very the French cinema, the caricature of the French cinema, and but you know, fair enough. I was really happy to do that, and I still do from time to time. So those movies, as you know, they are very realistic. You know, from the nouvelle vague and the new wave kind of thing, and that's the way it has to be done and shot. And so I'm used to work with directors who hates makeup effects and special effects, because it's not reality.
Right.
And some of them, sometimes they were angry, not because of my work, but because they were using
interesting
effects.
Yeah.
And it wasn't real. So you have to work with the I don't know, your goal is the realism. You don't always achieve it. It's very difficult, but hyper realism in a very realistic movie, a drama in a bathroom.
Yeah. No, and what a great experiences and what a great skill set to be able to build up to then bring, into doing horror projects, and doing like what it's yeah, that's so. And of course, for me as like Canada, but as like a fan of horror movies just in general, there was such an incredible boom in the 2000s of all these really great French horror movies with practical effects that really took me. I thought, oh wow, this is really changing
Oh, cool.
how I look for horror movies now.
Absolutely, yeah. Because on the realism front, I'm going to bring this up when I do the edit for the episode, and you won't be able to hear this, but you'll be able to see it if you watch it on YouTube. But I was looking through some of your previous work, and age makeup is something I've been obsessed with since I saw The Hunger, and that's where the realism, as soon as if you do that wrong, or not wrong, but if it looks slightly off, it'll look off instantly. So I'm looking at a picture of I was looking at the one of Juliette Binoche, and initially on your profile, I'm like, is that what she looks like now? I'm like, and then I scrolled through the pictures, and then I saw the picture of her, because obviously we know what she looks like. She's an icon. So when was because this is obviously very specific. When was your first experience of doing the age makeup or like progression in age? Because it's such a iconic makeup generally since you see David Bowie and the way he ages in The Hunger. So at what point were you? When did you start to like what you were making when it came to that specific thing?
Yeah, I started. Okay, the Hunger is I love the movie, and the makeup effects are just fantastic, mind blowing, and it's really outstanding work. But I started doing aging makeups, not like the Hunger, but I started doing aging makeup in high school, I guess, for plays and high school plays, and so my teachers were nice enough to let me build some latex appliances, and but they were really crap. And even when when I started working professionally, of course I started doing a few aging makeups, but it's really difficult to do a good aging makeup. And so yeah, I don't know. Even though I was working for a good 10 years, I think I was doing shit age makeups, to be honest. And even though, it's, but because you learn while you are making things, and by doing them and testing, especially the sculpt, because I don't know, I guess at first you have the tendency to cover everything, the whole face, and built up too much and too many wrinkles and too many appliances, and I don't know, you cannot see the weight of the skin, and you cannot see the actor anymore.
Yeah, because there's a temptation to go straight to 10, isn't there?
Yeah, or go straight to 11. Yeah, and like in a movie.
Spinal Tap.
Yeah, Spinal Tap. But then you realize that you are not Dick Smith. You're not. So maybe you need to go back and go step by step. But I guess the best advice, if I had an advice to give for aging makeup, is, to me anyway, is less is more. Even though you do a complex makeup, you can look at amazing sculptures at the workshop and everything from amazing artists all around the world. Sorry, my cat is here. And and hello. And but hello. And it's fake. It's not a real one. It's animatronic.
I was just thinking that. Should I say that as a joke? Or
yeah, the face split opens like that, and there's a monster. And, yeah. you can do really cool stuff at the workshop, and you can have the best sculptor in the world and everything. If it's too heavy, it will not move very well. I don't know. There's something missing. That's me. I don't know.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and I think it's going to be a bit of a trend, isn't it, Ian? To obviously we're going to ask you about your secrets of mixing, what your blood mix is, if you
I
ever want to
always
share
ask.
that. But we'll come to that, because there's obviously a very specific scene with a lot of blood in the substance, but
Yeah.
the scale of that is obviously different for something than a close up. How did you meet Coralie? Had you worked with her before? Because this is for a lot of my ignorance is the first time I saw her name with the trailer of the film. I thought I didn't know who the person was. I thought,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I loved Demi. I loved Demi more. I love the '80s. I'd gone through this whole '80s period of watching about last night and a bunch of St. Elmo's Fire. I thought, yeah, I'm going to go and see that because it looks really interesting. The marketing was great, and obviously I was, Ian and I were blown away, and a lot of people have been. So, what was your first experience of her and working with her?
Yeah, the first time I didn't know her before. From and I worked with the French executive producer. He used to be a production manager, and I've worked with him in the past. So they contacted another French company at first, and but they wanted to talk to other people, and so they came to the workshop. I met with them, and I read the script, and I chatted a little bit with Carly, and she told me I'm really concerned about the big monster at the end of the movie, and so I was not hired or anything, and I did very crude, quick, rough maquette sculpture, plastilene sculpture of Monstro, and it's crude, but it's quite close to the final monster with all the
Wow.
boobs and the arm facing back and the head like that and the second mouth and all that and she liked it even though it was crude and she said you're hired in a way, in a nutshell.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Was that
Yeah. I-
was that Marquette or that stage called Monstro? Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I had when I saw Revenge at the TIFF here in Toronto, and I had no idea about her and what the movie was about. It's always hard to get tickets, so anything I can get at the Midnight Madness, I'll go to. This year I could not go. It was impossible to get tickets for the Substance, rightfully so, because of just how incredible it was. But I remember seeing that in 2016 and it blew me away so much. Did you watch Revenge at
Yeah.
all before? Of course, yeah. And just her style, her direction, the execution, then of course the practical effects. I
Yeah.
was like, this is someone that I will always be excited. So as soon as I heard she had another movie, I could care less what it was about. I needed to see it,
Yeah.
and I think that's pretty incredible. I think a lot of people on the internet, you know, talk about you as sort of a new Rob Bottin style of artist,
Yeah.
and the level of that was obviously me and Alex are huge fans, but was the thing at all just something you looked at? Was something you knew you wanted to look at? What was sort of the initial thoughts for you when she said, "Okay, you're hired"?
Well, I'm not Rob Bottin, and I'm not being modest saying that. It's
This is just the internet, the people that are
yeah,
talking. Yeah,
yeah,
no,
yeah, yeah.
I
I'm
love how humble
definitely
you
not.
are.
It's so outstanding. I love what like many people, but
Yeah.
yeah, the craziness and the boldness. Can you say that? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, yeah, go crazy. And even when he does a fake head, when he did with his crew fake heads, when you do that, you don't see the upper teeth. If you are like that, like RoboCop or Total Recall, and
Yeah.
his fake heads, you could see all the teeth, which is really weird thing to do, but it works. It tells the story. It's crazy. It's awesome. But We never really, with Coralie, a little bit, but we never really talked about. I mean, I agree with you, Alex. You said that also before. I said we do not create in a vacuum. There is lots of influences, and but Coralie was talking about Requiem for a Dream, for instance.
Hmm? Cool.
That was obviously one of her big reference, and sometimes for a few details she was mentioning, like the exploding head in Scanners, you know. But
Yeah.
obviously that's the best exploding head in a movie ever. But apart from that, we never ever said, oh, okay, we're gonna do like a society kind of effects, or
Yeah.
Bottin kind of effects. Or sometimes I was, because Coralie wanted to do things practical, and
Yep.
sometimes I was like, do you remember? Even though we were not copying the design of the effect, but the technology. You remember that scene in Gremlins, and like when he's melting the bad gremlin, the striped gremlin, when he melts after jumping out of the fountain, you know, and he melts like that. It's really cool. And I said, so we were looking at the shot. Said, maybe we could use some of those techniques to for at the end of the movie, or Raiders of the Lost Ark, you know, the melting heads. Or it's like maybe we could use that for the blob at the end. Really old school, really old school. But yeah, she was like, yeah, okay. So I was sending, you know, YouTube clips to her just as a reminder.
Mhm. Hmm.
Exactly.
Hmm. Mhm.
When you had those initial meetings, did Caroline, you know, did you kind of go through about the scale of the work, because there's so many different stages of transformation or the monster? When did you know the sheer scale of this project, because it is massive?
Yeah, quite early on. I read the script, and then we had a reading with Carly. So we read the script together for a couple of days, and we went through all the effects in a movie. And talking with her, you know, sometimes because you can read something in a script, obviously, as you know, but then it's gonna be shot like very quickly, or we'll never see it really, or it's just
Hmm.
written down. But no, Carly wanted to show everything, and in a very, I mean, I discovered later in a under a very harsh light, which was,
Mhm.
yeah, very complicated in the bathroom.
Mhm.
But she didn't, tell me anything about that when we were preparing the movie. She was like, sure,
That's such a
the
big thing
bathroom
as
is.
well.
No, you know, I thought it's gonna be like the Howling, you know, the
Yeah,
office
light and
in the
shadow,
Howling
and yeah.
with nice shadows
Yeah.
and everything. No,
We
and
see it all.
no, and but yeah, so I was like, ooh, that's really big. And then we started designing and building everything, and Carly was really demanding. I was really demanding. Carly was also really demanding, and yeah, so there were many things that we were building a second time, because what we do, we build prototypes. We always
Mhm.
do. So when you build a prototype, you see what works and what doesn't. And so it's always cool when you are able to, I mean, cool, yeah, on the paper, because sometimes it's not cool when you have a schedule and you have to meet deadlines and you're tired and everything. But it's really for the best.
No,
Mhm.
and
But
that
yeah,
hard work, obviously, the hard work absolutely shows. And so what? Just out of curiosity, when you've obviously, you're the Coralie, just that you have that connection. She says you're hired based on the kind of marquette. When you're taking that onto set, what's that? Just from a layman like myself that doesn't work with huge makeup or anything like that. What's that relationship between yourself, the director, and say Demi in relation to a makeup? Are the actors talking to the director about how the makeup works and how you can push the makeup in terms of physicalities, or is that more of a three-way collaboration?
yeah, I mean, for instance, in Demi's case, she was the one asking even early on if she could see the designs and stuff like that,
Cool.
because it was feeding her
Yeah.
from the inside for her part and to play her part. And I don't know. It's a mix of everything, a little bit of everything. There's the in the makeup room. There's the kind of intimity of the makeup room, professional intimity, and that's, yeah. When so you can see sometimes the changes of the actors. You know, you yeah, and um, getting through the makeup and all that, and I guess, well, and then when you arrive on set, it's fine tuning. Sometimes you cannot, obviously you cannot change big things. All that has been done before during prep time, but yeah. Then sometimes with Coralie, sometimes we agreed on things, and sometimes we disagreed, and that's
I think that's the with the collaboration. Like I've got a very good friend of
Mhm.
mine that I learned not this lighting, but I learned basic lighting from years ago at university, and we'd always have a bit of tension about certain things. But when
Mhm.
you get past that, when you find that that same path, you actually find a better avenue to go down together. So I think that if it's all all roses the whole time, I think sometimes you get a bit complacent with that.
Mhm.
Um, but
yeah.
yeah, the there's so many different stages of the makeups, and I think one of the most beautiful moments is there's so many. I'm going to obviously pop between them. Is between. I'm not sure if you had anything to do with the particular scene with um, Dennis Quaid eating the seafood, which is a masterpiece of a scene because it's
Yeah.
so disgusting. It's so
It's
disgusting.
disgusting.
It's like John. I don't know if you remember the scene. John Noble eating tomatoes in the Two Towers, Lord of the Rings. There's a moment
Oh,
where he's eating, and it's disgusting.
Wow.
Um, but then it's when the level of transition, and for anyone that hasn't seen the film, you have to see this film. It's
I
one of the
mean,
best films of the year.
yeah,
It's
cool.
the bruising on the back of Demi Moore's back.
Mhm.
With the levels of the extraction of the
Sweet.
levels of the instruction, and
fine
that level
fluid.
of infection is my wife. I turned to my wife because I knew she'd find it disgusting, and it was like, oh, because it feels so real, and that's when it
Yeah.
works. So,
Yeah.
do you have any? Do you have any favorite pieces of the work you did on the film?
Yeah, so I have nothing to do with the shrimps and scene. It's all the sound effects in that scene. Yeah, really, it's
Yeah.
really
Oh, it's
great. Favorite scenes from the movie. I really like when the first time we see Gollum naked,
what a piece too.
Demi Moore naked, and I mean the character on all. yeah, the old hag kind of thing. And but I don't know, yeah, I really like that character. And when she's walking in the corridor and falling down and then and all that, I think it's great. I like the Monstro stuff. Obviously, I like the boop popping out. Um,
That
I
got the
like
best. That got the best reaction. That was in the theater. It was really busy. The theater I was in, and it got the best reaction.
Oh, awesome, awesome! And then that was the most complicated effect. It was really simple effect in a way. Just no fancy stuff. It was really straightforward. I really like, even though I like the birth at the beginning, so the backs moving and everything,
Oh, it's
because
great.
maybe because we had lots of fun on set. At the end of the shoot, we shot all that, and to animate and all, we did principal production for a few months, and then for a few weeks we did the effects heavy scenes with a reduced crew. It wasn't a second unit, it was first unit but smaller. And so we were able, what was really cool, for instance, for the birth, we shot it one day, and there is a second back, Margaret back, moving from the inside, and the back was a bit stiff. I said to Coralie, and Coralie was like, yeah, I agree, it's a bit stiff. And I said, we can make it better, give me a couple of days, I'll be back with a better second back. And there were no tension or anything. She was like, yeah, cool, let's wrap it for the day, let's do something else and go back to the workshop and go back with a better back.
So what was it? What was it you changed? Was it the thickness or the textures? What was it that made that improvement?
Yeah, it was much softer. It was almost yeah, it was almost if you were not manipulating and puppeteering it was all completely. It couldn't hold its shape. And okay, last scenes I really liked, even though you cannot really see it in the movie, but when the Monstro's head explodes, right?
Love it.
There are a couple of heads growing back, and there is a second head, and yeah, and then you cannot really we see the heads growing back and the second head, but it's kind of all the craziness and the craziness of the scene. But we shot, yeah, we shot lots of things with those heads, and I really like that. I wish it was a bit longer in the movie, but just
Yeah, I think there was
So do I.
It was just yeah, absolutely. It was. There's such a payoff. I think that the way it ramps up the film and the small details, what I really like, and obviously this is in the script, is the procedural nature to taking the energy from the other person. The way with all the tubes, and I think the lore of the substance and what you have to do is great. And as soon as you start to see that level of they've taken too much, like on the finger, it seems simple, but to have that effect is really kind of magnificent. How many from the finger to Monstro? How many stages are there for you in terms of, because is it just like a piece that's like a sleeve, or is it applied? And how many kind of stages are there up until the the Hunchback of Notre Dame moment in many respects? Because it's like that scene in The Fly when Jeff Goldblum's character's put the shotgun to the head. It's a magnificent kind of climax. So is there a huge number of intermediary stages?
yes. Well, there were many stages for the scars and the puncture holes, also puncture hole, and all the spine fluid and everything. So all that was really carefully designed. It was really important for the story. Even for instance, the thread, the black thread, it's very thick, and it's not your usual thread to do stitches, obviously. Very, very thick, and all that was Coralie was really insisting. So, no, I don't want just any thread, black thread. I want gruesome, horrible, I don't know, do it yourself kind of stitching. So there are many stages for that, many stages for the puncture hole, and for the aging makeup on Demi, we had the finger, and then which was really important, because if the finger was not working, the rest wouldn't follow, really. I think. And then we had the Requiem stage, when it's like Requiem for Dream, obviously, when it's half of the face, aged and a little bit of a hunchback, and and the leg and all that, and the hands. And then we have the Gollum stage. So it's 3 stages for that, and then cut to Monstro. And Monstro, we have Monstro, the Monstro, and then we have all the 2 growing heads, and then the second head, and then we have the blob. And then in between, we had also what we call the Gremlin Monstro, because of the Gremlin from the Fontaine I was talking about. When Monstro explodes, sorry for the spoiler, sorry about that, but when Monstro explodes, that cool top shot, and it falls down. And then you could see it's like twitching and deflating. That was really, from the Gremlin. So even in the shooting schedule, it was written the Gremlin Monstro. So we had Monstro, exploding head for Monstro, 2 growing heads, second head for Monstro, the Gremlin Monstro, and the blob. So it's 7 stages for Monstro, 3 stages for Demi, or for the aging makeup, and we had 3 stages for the wounds, and I can't remember for the puncture holes, but a few, 4 or 5.
What I think that works really well, sorry, Ian, is is the kind of what you were saying about age makeup earlier, and the weight, the weight of the skin, and the twitching, like Ian Holm at the end of Alien, when you see the hand twitching in the background, it sells it so much more, because that's effectively what a human would do. So when you see twitching, or the way the meat falls apart at the end of the substance, it really sells it. And like the exploding head works, because I don't know what it is. You can't necessarily put your finger on it, but it looks like flesh. The effect is works so well, because what you're looking at is so monstrous, and quite an apt name. And it's such a magnificent team effort.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah.
We need, if you don't mind, we need to mention important. My cat is just destroying my computer. Sorry, evil cat. Cat does and there were special effects supervisor that he did all the blood rig for Monstro. His name is Jean Miel. He's a French guy with his crew, and he built the blood rig. Took care for we did the heads, but the gelatin heads, but he did all the explosive inside the squibs and all that, just of the explosion. And also there were Bernard, I can't remember his last name, but he built all the substance kit, all the kits.
Oh, it's incredible.
It's lots of work.
It's like the level of detail when it comes to the kits. It looks like, when you look at production design of, say, Alien, or even just an oxygen tube, and the level of even the use of fonts and the scale of things, it just everything felt real and sold it.
Totally. So it is a character in itself,
it was so important, very important for Coralie. So Bernard did that, Jean Miel did the special effects, the blood rig and everything. There was also I designed Monstro, but when it was time to build the suit and the makeup, even though we took care of it during the shoot and built all the boobs and all that, but the suit was built because of time problems and issues we had. It was crazy. It was built in the UK by Dave and Lou Elsey, amazing artists. They worked on a Wolfman, and amongst many others, many other movies. So it needs to be said, subcontracted to them, and I was so happy they jumped in because we were below the water. So yeah, Jean, Bernard, Dave, and Lou, they were very important to, and everyone in my crew, obviously, from the trainee to the sculptor to the mold makers.
Well, that's it. That's something we absolutely applaud, because when we spoke to Joshua Petrino, he was the, I want to make sure I get this right, visual effects supervisor. If I get, thankfully, because I got it wrong the last time when I posted something out. But he and a lot of other effects artists appreciate. Obviously, we're speaking to you. You know, a supervisor on the film, on the effects of the film, and it's so important to, you know, the level of appreciation for like, it goes back to what we were saying of the team you work with, because to hand off a big piece of a big effect to a UK based team, or to a different team outside your sphere, what was that like? Was it just like, thank you for doing this, you knew their reputation was great, or was it like, oh, I don't really want to hand it off, but I have to?
No, it was. I didn't want to hand it off, but I had to. Actually, what happened is that so we designed for a month Monstro, even though in the end it looks like my first maquette, but you know, that's the way it is. And so we took the live cast of the stunt performer. We started building all the molds to sculpt the full size Monstro. So we were ready to go on to rock and roll. And then it was complicated. And Coralie, I understand, but she couldn't decide on. We did dozens and dozens of ZBrush, digital design, and Photoshop, and traditional sculpting, everything, mixing everything, and I hired artists. I sculpted tons of stuff myself, and sometimes I was sculpting with Coralie and feeding everyone with all that and everything. So we worked like crazy on that, and but she couldn't decide, and it was important. So I understand, but time was clicking and running, and shooting had started already, and it was like, okay, it's difficult. I really wish we had built Monstro ourselves, even though Dave and Lou, they did an amazing job, and it's perfect, and it's great. But so it was like, I sent all the molds. We scanned the maquette, the original maquette. So they were able to print the original maquette. So, and it's, if you I could show you pictures of the maquette and what they did. It's exactly the same, just adapting a little bit to the performer. And but to the book, and Coralie was really, I want the maquettes full size. So she was really. So I was in contact with them, and Coralie was in contact with them and Lou when they were building, and then we built. And they did that, and then with my crew, we took care of the suit and applying the makeup on Margaret and everything, and the whole blood, we did that. And then we built all the fake heads for the boop, you know, popping out. We built all the Gremlin, Monstro, the exploding head, and the blob, and we did that. So it was like, okay, let's take the pressure off holders. And they can build Monstro, and they will do an amazing job because they are amazing artists. But then we can focus on the book popping out, on the fake heads, and all that kind of thing. So that's what happened.
That's incredible. So how, just out of real curiosity, it's not even related to a technique or makeup or anything. How was that shipped? Was it in a van? Was it flown? Was it in pieces?
It was shipped. It was no, I guess it was just the usual, I don't know, UPS, FedEx.
That's funny.
No, nothing fancy.
The reason I asked that, I just remembered a story when COVID hit. Obviously, everyone was Amazon blew up and deliveries were everywhere. And I live on an army base, so I'm not part of the army, but they sold some of the houses. It's obviously an old UK army base, but I received a box in the post and I signed for. I don't know what this is, and I was in a meeting just like this with 12 other people, the heads of the business I was working with, and people were obviously very bored at home, and unless they were doing something else, and said, "Oh, what did you receive?" Because I went to get it, and I opened it, and I pulled it out, and it was a head, and it was like with black hair, like like a mannequin head, and everyone just started laughing, and I was like, "What the hell is this?" And then I realized across the road, the neighbor was a hairdresser, and she was using it to practice brushing her hair. And it was like, and when I took it over to the neighbor, she was cracking up because I told her about the meeting and 12 people, all my bosses saw it. So I'm just picturing that. You see, imagine Monstro's opened by someone else, and that's there.
My God, you know what happened to me once? I worked on a Cyrano de Bergerac, play Cyrano with the big nose, and yeah, and it was a big play with an amazing actor and everything. It was great, and so one day I went to the theater, and they were playing in, and with I had 40 no's, so it was in Paris, and I took the metro to go there, and and then I left and I went to the theater and someone said, "Oh, do you know Pierre? Pierre is doing all the makeup and the noses." And I said, "Oh, fuck, the noses!" And I forgot the noses on the metro, and I've never found them. Yeah, I left them on the
Oh,
metro. I
damn.
left the noses on the metro, and so I'm sure someone opened the box full of weird
No.
Cyrano silicone, I don't know, noses, and he never returned them, or he or she never returned my noses. I was like,
Wow.
no, I forgot the noses on the metro, 40 of them, or whatever. Like,
That's hilarious.
nightmare.
Maybe you jump started a young artist's makeup career. Well, I'm gonna have to use these noses now.
Yeah.
Maybe, or someone with a fetish. I don't know.
Yeah. That's brilliant, because with that play, because it's such an iconic thing, and a very iconic French play, the nose is the most important. That's the funniest thing about the story. It's absolutely.
I felt so stupid that day, but yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. Have you got any? I don't want to. I can constantly talk about this film because it's magnificent. I know you don't like the comparisons to certain people, but honestly, the work is a marvel.
It is incredible.
From film fans, it's a marvel. It really is. Like the
level
of detail.
Also, to add to that too, I think the thing I really love about it is a lot of my friends and family, don't watch the horror movies that I like to watch. With a lot of this incredible work, like I wouldn't watch that. I don't watch Evil Dead. I'm not going to watch The Thing. And this movie has been so incredible. The amount of audiences that are seeing it now, and then getting to see on such a beautifully large scale this style of work, this incredible style of work, and it's really affecting them in a positive way as well. I think that it's just so incredible that you've gotten to do, these things that I love seeing my entire life now on the biggest scale. And, I hope, without saying any specifics, that this continues to go, towards the best case scenarios for you on a grander scale, award size, whatever that means. It's we could say how incredible it is, but you really been able to bring what we love as indie horror fans to this mainstream, and Coralie as well.
Coralie,
bringing to that scale. I think the team for a movie like this really just hit at the right time and resonated. I mean, 2024 was such a great year for horror, practical horror, in general. But the amount of people that came to me and said, "Oh my God, did you see this movie? I'm like, oh yes, of course, I know, but they never would have, it was like, oh, if you like that, Terrifier has a lot of, no, I won't watch that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those with Terrifier and Smile 2 and The Substance in the UK, we saw them within a week of each other, and it was just joyous because of exactly what Ian's saying. Having horrors slowly getting more respect and science fiction slowly getting more respect, which we know is sadly lacking, has been lacking before. But the reason I mention and we love it so much, is there any opportunity is there going to be because there's documents of the work of features that I absolutely love. Like I've got Jean-Paul Gaultier's book about his designs of The Fifth Element and the costumes.
Oh, yeah.
Is there an opportunity for yourself to a book release of the work from yourself in terms of photographic and interviews, that kind of thing?
I never thought of that. Actually, might be a good idea. But that's a good idea. Actually, very good idea.
Oh yeah.
Never thought of that. But yeah, we had tons of materials and pictures, and yeah, that could be cool. Yeah, good idea. I need to talk with people.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that because the reason I mention that is because with The Fifth Element and the designs and Jean-Paul Gaultier's work, and my first knowledge of him was Eurotrash in the UK, which was this crazy show, and the work is so kind of iconic just for that film. And the book's out of print now, and you have to spend a lot of money to get it. So thankfully, I've still got that. But I think that this kind of work, this level of work with all the different stages, would be we're not saying it's going to be one of those Tom Savini books where it teaches someone, but as a document it could be absolutely magnificent. And I think because the word of mouth and the level of love for this is going higher and higher, not just from fans like ourselves, but from, like Ian's saying, general film goers. I think it's definitely worth kind of delving into, because it's one of those things. I've got Joe Alves' production design book, and he became a judge, and he worked with Ian and I for this festival we did, and I bought that straight away because I wanted to know how the shark was put together and all of that. So I think, I would love to see that.
I need to talk to Coralie about that. I'm sure she would be up to that. Yes. Yeah, because I guess that's what we were saying the past hour. It's we all love the same movies and the same practical effects and yes, I guess maybe that's why people are reacting positively to the effects and makeup effects and to the movie. Maybe for different reasons for the movie itself, but for the effects and everything, because it's really I really respect and I really love makeup effects, and that's really what I love. That's for 35 years I dream and I live makeup effects. So it was not an homage or anything, it's not that, but to me it was. I mean, in 2024, you don't really have, especially in France, you don't really have the chance to do a big practical effect, makeup effects movie like that, with very few VFX, a few, but very few, and very good VFX, by the way. Also, we never mentioned the VFX team, but they did amazing,
absolutely,
very subtle,
seamless. It's that. The reason we didn't mention it is because the work's so effective. That's the genius of it. That's absolutely
it blends with the practical effects. And Coralie was like, I don't want it to look like visual effects. I want the visual effects to look like practical effects, but things we cannot do, obviously. And what they've done is really flawless. It's great. So yeah, it was. I mean, I grew up reading interviews of Chris Wallace when he was doing The Fly, and makeup effects for The Fly and everything, and all the different heads and makeups and everything, and so it was to me, it was really dream come true. But I never really thought of that, like, oh, I'm gonna do like my own The Fly. It's not that at all. But yeah, because when you are in the middle of the movie, you are. Sometimes I thought it was the end of my career, and I swear it's true. Some days I was going back into my car on the parking, and back from the studio, and we were shooting, and I was like, no, it does not work. It's not working.
Oh wow.
And driving, thinking, and so it's yeah. I
Well, that's
guess
it. It's like the pressure you're putting on yourself is.
yeah.
It's important to have that, and to it helps you become a better filmmaker, a better artist, to understand how to get past that.
Yeah. When you ask me, how do you feel now when that the movie is released? How do you feel? Maybe I feel at least it's not the end of my career.
No, not at all, my friend. No way.
That's the quote for inside the book. That's the quote for the inside of the book.
I feel like this is going to be a very exciting new chapter of your career. Of your already incredibly illustrious, career. I'm especially getting this time to talk with you. Very excited to see what's next, what's to come. Absolutely, man.
Yeah, cool.
We'd absolutely love to talk to you about future projects when they come up, and when obviously this is the kind of perfect time to talk about this because of the digital release. And sadly, in the UK, I think it's going to be on Blu-ray in like June or July next year, which is awful. But I can't wait, and hopefully there'll be some official kind of behind the scenes stuff and all of that.
Yes. There will be. I talked with Coralie. There were, there was making of crew every day on set.
Oh, amazing!
And,
great.
Tons of materials they have.
And if you, I don't need any credit for the book, but if you do release a book, if you need an inside sleeve, if you need an inside sleeve photo, I'll come to Paris and I'll take the photo for you.
Awesome. Okay, I take your word.
Yeah, I'll absolutely do that. I'll do it next day. I'd come over.
He's very talented.
Okay, yeah. Awesome. But that's I'm not saying that to be nice. It's a really good idea. I need to talk to Coralie about that.
Yeah, I think that people will, like, I look at certain designs in this Joe Alves Jaws book and marvel at it, and it's just, I think that it will inspire. There's going to be certain filmmakers that, like Jeremy Sellenfield, when we talk about Smile 2 and the makeups and his work, and it's incredible. And we all three of us marveled at the film Chopping Mall, and it's like a mutual thing. But I think that when you look at this film, Substance now, when you look at the Substance now, exactly, there'll be that level of influence. There's certain things in the film, like the kits to take the spinal fluid. People don't necessarily realize they're being influenced by this. So I think, props to yourself and Coralie and the whole team, because it is one of the best films of the year from my point of view. I absolutely loved it, and like Demi's performance, I think it's the best of her career. I think she's obviously mega talented, but
awesome.
The level of collaboration, that's the reason I asked about the collaboration with yourself, director, and the leads, is that you can see that, like when she's wiping the makeup off and the level of trauma that's going through when she's on the phone as well, you can see that she's so invested in the story, the direction, the makeup, and hats off to yourself and the director and the whole team, really.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, no, thank you.
This has been great fun.
Yeah. And as a fan of movies and practical effects, it was an absolute honor to talk to you, and thank you for sharing your history, your backstory, your influences. It's monumental for me as well.
Brilliant. That was great talking to you.
Yeah,
and we love to see the photographs of the Marquette as well, if there's any opportunities for that. So.
What photograph?
The Marquette. You've got the pictures of the original Marquette. I don't know if you've already posted those.
No, not yet. I still keep them, but I will eventually. I will eventually post pictures of the design of Monstro, the evolution of the design.
Yeah.
Anyways.
That's it. That's chapter 1. That's chapter 1 in the book.
Yeah, okay. And I
Thanks.
hope people will. Thanks a lot, and I hope my English wasn't too.
That was amazing.
Broken. Fine.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Alex, Ian, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you again.
Same to you, Pierre. Thank you so much.
Take care, buddy. Have a lovely evening.
Have a great night.
You too. Bye bye.
Take care.